All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Virtual Coffee, the Lunch and Learn edition. Virtual Coffee's mission is to be a welcoming tech community that allows room for growth and mentorship at all levels, and to create meaningful opportunities for learning, leadership, and contribution for everyone. To find our code of conduct, our events, or to learn more, you can check out our site, virtualcoffee.io. We're glad to have you here with us all today, and especially want to thank our presenter for being in here. And so welcome to Julia Seidman.
That's right. I'm on your side, man. That's how you remember how to say my name. Yeah, but Bekah, you're going to do kind of an overview.
I'll go ahead and get us started. Just to do an overview of what our challenge is. So you should be able to see my screen right now. And this is our monthly challenge page. I will throw this link in the chat whenever I find the chat again. But it's always virtualcoffee.io/monthly challenges, and then you find the challenge that corresponds. So this is actually the third time we've run this challenge. This was the very first challenge of all our monthly challenges. So this is like a big and exciting one for me. I am very excited to be doing this again. But it's based off of the National Novel Writing Month. And in the United States in November, there is a nonprofit organization that runs this event for writers. So they help them to set goals and find community and to be able to write a novel in 1 month. And so a novel is about 50,000 words, and that has been our goal in the past. But this year, we decided that since we hit 125,000 words last year, we hit 125,392, and we keep increasing our goals, having reached goals once we hit our main goal. But you can go back and see all of the things that were written last year if you are interested in finding ideas or seeing what other people are writing about. But we do include a link to that on our monthly challenge page. So this year we are going to start with 100,000 words. And today there will be a place where you can submit your blog posts on the site. And then we will have a nice little stretch goal thingy there on the page for this year. And so just a little bit of an overview of what kind of content counts for this challenge. We want it to be a blog post or an article. So there have been some questions like, do readmes count, or Twitter threads, or slides? And we, in the spirit of National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, we want you to write something that's a little bit fuller. So like a blog post. If you take that Twitter thread and turn it into a blog post, that blog post counts. You take those slides, turn it into a blog post, that counts. So things like that, we'd like to see folks developing their writing for this month. And we also have an official topic this year. It's the first time that we've been doing this, but we just added a developer health section to our site. And right now it's just one page, but we plan on adding more pages to this and just kind of making a developer health landing page that includes topics. So right now we have burnout on there, and you can read that. We also have some resources on there, but we have some topics that you might want to explore and add to our developer health section. I think it'd be really cool if we could get 50,000 words on developer health itself. So almost writing an entire book on it. But you don't have to write about developer health at all. You can write about any tech related subject. And if you're not confident about your writing, that's totally fine. This is a really good place to get started and to have some feedback. And we have people who are willing to proofread and give feedback throughout the month. So you can go ahead and drop that in the monthly challenge channel. If you have a link to your rough draft and you want folks to give you some feedback, there surely will be somebody there to help you out with that. Just a couple more things. If you don't know what to write about, we have got you covered. So we have, let's see, this discussion post on our GitHub discussion board from this year. And so as you can see, we have quite a bit of topics. If you think of topics that you want to add to this, feel free to add to this list. It doesn't go away. It can be there the entire month. So take a look at that. And then we have the list of topics from last year. So there's a lot of really great topics from last year as well. that you can explore. And don't feel like you need to use these topics. I think a great place to start is, hey, what did we talk about in virtual coffee this week? I'm going to sum up those notes. Or what did I accomplish this week? It doesn't have to have code. It doesn't have to be 100% technical. My first blog post this month is on imposter syndrome. And that's what we talked about at virtual coffee on Tuesday. So I brought a lot of takeaways there. So I would say if you're a little bit nervous, it's okay to be nervous. We are here to support you and help you in whatever way we can. We have like a handful of topics on the site just to get people started, and a couple of resources there. So if there are any questions, let me know in the chat and I will hand it over to Julia now.
Oh, real quick, one thing I forgot to do was to read Julia's bio. So I'll do that real quick. Julia Seidman is a technical marketing consultant and developer in the San Diego area. She has 2 terrific kids and a wonderful partner, and her family cosplays as a normal family. Julia is a believer in the Korean rather than the career. I think that's what I do. After studying anthropology and writing a senior thesis on the ethics of museum collections of human skeletal remains, who doesn't, she took the job she could get, which was fundraising for a hospital. From there, she became a financial analyst and employee educator for 401k and pension plans. After that, she got a master's in teaching and taught high school English, ESL, and debate for most of a decade. Now she works as a freelance technical writer and software developer specializing in marketing, technical content marketing. And with that, Julia, we're turning it over to you.
Great. I wrote that bio for myself, I don't know, a year and a half ago or so. So I'm pleased to see it's still relevant. So I will preface this by saying I am nowhere near as organized as I had hoped to be today. So my apologies. I'm going to be kind of freestyling this. And that was sort of my intent from the beginning, that it would just be a Q&A for at least a good portion of today. But maybe a little more Q&A than I was planning. So yeah, just a little bit more about my background and what I thought I might kind of add as far as value add for this monthly challenge. I am basically a professional tech blogger. I work with API companies, primarily developer tools, SaaS products, helping them create technical content for their developer portals. So, you know, when you go to whatever API's website and there's the little ribbon at the top and you can click on developers, it's kind of all of the stuff that you might find under there is the kind of stuff I work on, with the exception of API endpoint documentation, which I don't do. So I thought, well, I could probably, and then last year or earlier this year, a client of mine, of ours through the agency that I work through, asked us, they said, you know, we're having a hard time developing an internal content pipeline, and we want to build something kind of like DigitalOcean's contributor pipeline, their Write for Donations program. And I was like, well, that's a big ambition, but okay. DigitalOcean employs like a whole team of editors and copywriters who are specially focused on helping onboard new writers for that Write for DO program. This client didn't want to do that. What they wanted was to start just to have like some templates and some guides that they could provide to potential writers to kind of just be a place to start. So that was what I created for them, was based on my experience as a technical blogger. I created 2 templates or guides or whatever. One for writing how I built it articles, and the other for writing like technical opinion pieces, AKA hot takes. So I created those two templates for them. Yeah, I know I sound so hip when I say AKA hot takes. I created those two templates for them. And then they kind of bailed on the whole project. And I was like, well, I created this stuff. I think I could make it work for virtual coffee. So I started revising these guides, and this is one of the hazards of having a professional writer try to create anything on a short time frame, is I'm never satisfied. And so if I go back to revise something, I find myself revising forever. So I started revising, and I got a little in too deep, but I've got one really awesome guide, and the second one will be coming later today. So I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of this first, like how I built it article template. I will share, and then I'll show you what I've got for the other one, and then we'll share these later. We'll, I guess, maybe put them in that resources section on the monthly challenge page that Bekah was just showing. I also thought I could talk about an article that I'm about to start writing and kind of like what my process is for approaching that, if that interests people. And we'll do a Q&A. So yeah, any questions before I start? Any things like that you guys are definitely want to hear about? Advice from a writer? No? Okay, cool. As you think of things, raise your hand or put them in the chat or whatever. I'm happy to stop and answer questions as I go. Okay, where? Share screen. Desktop. Okay, this is not good presentation skills, but here we go. So this is my guide for technical storytelling. So, or how I built it articles. There is a little bit of a tendency among technical bloggers, technical content creators, to go like really hardcore on the technical
details. I'm going to interrupt you real quick.
Yeah.
Are you sure you're sharing the right thing? Looks like you're sharing some token secrets and things.
Oh goodness.
Might want to hide those.
Those are I said share screen too. Okay. I wonder. What do you see now?
That looks like the right thing now. It's technical storytelling document.
Yeah. Okay, good. Huh. Weird. Well, that token secret will just get you to a lock that's attached to nothing in an office in Boulder. So, okay. So there's a tendency with when you go and look at technical content that's created by people who are maybe not primarily writers, that like the more technical a topic gets, the less narrative it gets. It's like people go all in on the technical details and they forget about the craft of storytelling. And if you want people to actually be able to like follow along with what you did and be inspired by what you did and understand like how you think and how you work, you need to tell a story. So my guide for how I built it articles, which are like the really code intensive, like, you know, follow along and you'll have a working app at the end kind of articles. My guide for these is based around the idea of structuring your article as a story with a beginning, a middle, and end, with a focus on a plot structure. It's not that you have to do this. Like, I don't want to set the bar so high that people are like, I could never do this. But if you want to take your writing kind of to the next level, these are ideas that might help you get there. Or if you're having a hard time figuring out how to even get started, this might be something that you could use to get there. So I provide some examples. I have some kind of framing questions for figuring out what story you want to tell, what details you want to include, some tips for scoping and organizing your ideas, which I am a former English teacher. I do think you should write an outline. But you don't have to. I think it's very helpful. So I provided like some outline ideas, a very basic outline template with some questions to answer based around this idea of creating a story arc to your technical story. And then I have a sample outline for like something that I might theoretically write. And just some general tips. I will, yeah. I want to just quickly show you a couple of the different organizers that you might use for idea generation or organization, like outlining. They're going to seem weird. And I want to explain just briefly, like how I might use this approach. So this is a plot diagram, which maybe you remember from high school English classes. You actually can translate this into a technical article pretty effectively. So I don't know, does anybody have an example of like a problem, a technical problem that you're trying to solve, something you're trying to build that we could maybe use as an example for this? I could probably walk through this like Flutter stuff that I'm working on as an example, unless somebody else has something. No? Okay, so here's how I would tell the story of my experience with Flutter. In the beginning, the exposition, we have a new client who came to us and said, after we had done a little bit of work with them, we've really decided that we're going to make a big investment in Flutter as our mobile development platform of choice. We really think this is the future of cross-platform mobile development, and like we're just going for it. We're going to put all our eggs in one basket, and we need you to develop the getting started guides, some conceptual explanations of what Flutter is, why we chose it, and how, how it's being put to use in this particular project. Well, that set off a conflict, which was that we had already been hired to do this work, but nobody at our agency had any experience with Flutter. And so I, as the protagonist of this story, had to figure out, how am I going to do this? What is this technology? So the rising action would include what I did to get started, how did I start learning, what were the tools I used, what were the problems I encountered. And the tension is going to build through that story as I work my way towards the crisis, which was when I realized that I had basically been reconstructing, like, I had misunderstood the way that their tools were constructed. And I was basically trying to build my own version of something they had already done, and their documentation and their availability to explain things to me was so poor that, like, I had just been out in the wilderness on my own and had gotten into this like unbelievable mess. And I was so stressed out, and I was like, oh my God, our project manager is mad. Like, the client's going to be mad. I don't know what I'm doing. This is terrible. And then we had a meeting, and the client was like, oh, that's great. You understand this so well now. Like, no big deal. Our timeline is like not urgent. Phew, like, let's schedule a meeting and we'll walk through it. Falling action, great. We're all good. Resolution is we decided to take a different approach with the guides and split them up into pieces. And like, ultimately, I built something pretty cool. And my understanding of it was much better because of like all of this rising action and climax, and like, oh my God, I thought I had really screwed it up. But in the end, like, I wound up with a deeper understanding of Flutter. And here is the code that I wrote that shows my deeper understanding. So telling that story with this structure in mind is going to help me tell it more convincingly. So I might very well like use this diagram and kind of plug in the events of my story along this plot diagram as I figured out how to write a blog post about this experience. And that's not what I'm going to write, because that's not what the client wants. But if I wanted to, if I were writing an article that was like how I learned Flutter the hard way, I might use this, this plot diagram. Similarly, another way that you might tell a story about a technical problem is another English teacher tool. It's the somebody wanted but so then organizer. So this works well for telling the story of a technical solution to a very specific problem. So who was it that was generating the like impetus behind this project? Was it a client? Was it you? Was it your boss? Was it an open source community that you are a participant in? Like, somebody, some human, it was the impetus behind the work that you're doing. And I think it's really important to remember that human element. It's part of what engages people in reading about your technical journey. Okay, whoever that person is, what do they want? like what they wanted was not necessarily what you built. What they wanted was a solution. What they wanted was they had a problem that needed to be solved. And this is something that is kind of like a core principle of the way I approach technical writing. Our principal consultant just posted this sort of like satire technical marketing thing that was like a really glossy formatted announcement. Company you've never heard of is proud to announce product you don't care about that does a thing you have no idea what you would need it for. There is so much technical content that's written that way. And it's not compelling to other people. Like, what people want to know is how you solved a real world problem, how a tool applies to a real world use case. So, for example, let's say you were writing about something you did with Twilio, and what you ultimately wound up doing was combining SMS and voice in some unique pattern. That's not what somebody wanted. Somebody didn't want like, the XYZ pattern of SMS and voice interactions happening with this particular authentication model and, avoiding freeze conditions or whatever it is. I'm just making things up. What they wanted was a way to, I don't know, communicate better about restaurant reservations. Somebody, like my friend who owns some restaurants, wanted a better way to communicate with potential patrons when last minute reservations opened up. But the existing tools didn't make this possible because, there was this compatibility issue or whatever it was. Why couldn't my friend get this ability? And then, so like, how did I, as a developer, solve that problem? What did I do that was unique with Twilio or whatever? Like, how did I combine existing technologies in a novel way? And then finally, what was the resolution back to this problem, the real world problem? The solution isn't the code you wrote. The solution is the outcome of how people's behavior changes as a result of this new technology that you've created. That is, again, like just a much more engaging, human-centered technical story. And, 80% of it is probably going to be that where you explain all of the code and you have code samples and you say like, this is what's different about what I'm doing. And, the existing tools work this way and that's no good because XYZ. But giving it this frame in the introduction and conclusion gives it meaning for your readers in a way that just the code does not. Okay. So I've been talking too much. Shoot me your questions.
Julia, until somebody else comes up with a question, Bekah left with a question. And
Yeah.
it was one of the things I struggle with is getting bored with my own writing. I'm trying to find the right balance in storytelling and technical writing. If you have any advice for how to find the right balance, I'd love it. And based on what you've covered so far about kind of mixing storytelling with the technical part, I think that helps. But if you could expound on it, that'd be great.
I guess I'm not sure. Bekah had to leave. I'm not exactly sure what she means about getting bored with her own writing. I mean, the thing I struggle with is starting to feel like my writing gets really cliche over time. And that is kind of partly the nature of like writing for a fairly superficial short-term audience. Yeah, reading different things. That's what Kai said. And I feel like that I start trying, feel like that I try to start reading different things. I think that helps. That helps me for sure. Reading different sources, different kinds of writers. I would also say, so I kind of have different characters that I write as. And this isn't going to be as relevant probably for people who are not doing this professionally. But I put myself in different personas when I write. And that helps me take a different perspective and also write in a different voice. So like I have an ongoing series for one of my clients on like some pretty nitty-gritty security stuff. And for that, I write from a very different voice and a very different perspective than I do when I'm writing like these kind of like curiosity driven beginner, like relative beginner focused pieces, like when I'm talking about the Flutter piece. So when I'm writing about Flutter, I'm channeling my like inner student, and writing from that kind of point of view of naive curiosity, I guess. Whereas like when I'm writing about security, I'm trying to write from a place of authority and like a analytical perspective. Another thing that I sometimes do for some clients is I will write I'll ghostwrite technical stuff for their executives. And so that is like yet another persona that I have to put on, where I have to be like the business executive. And I think that's pretty effective for me. But part of that is definitely that I do a lot of reading of those different personas to kind of inform how I write. And that was, it's funny. It's actually something I sort of learned to do as a teacher. Like being a teacher is very performative. Like you are on stage and you have to adopt a persona, like a teacher persona that isn't necessarily like you. I think that because I write in order to teach people, I kind of do the same thing. Like making my voice into the teacher that's needed by the moment. I don't know if that's a good answer. Anybody else have any questions?
I do. How should you deal with personal technical blogging, writing about things you've created yourself or problems you've resolved versus technical blogging for a company? Should you carry over your own personal character over to the company blog, or should you do what the company wants you to do?
Most of my clients are very happy to have me write from kind of my point of view. Some have more a more narrowly focused vision of what they want their writers to sound like. And that's hard because most people aren't very good at conveying what they actually want. So it's not necessarily hard for me to adopt a different style, but it's hard for me to guess what the style is that somebody else wants. So I would say that if you are trying to differentiate between your writing for yourself and your writing for your, like, a corporate mouthpiece, like mostly it's just about level of like formality and polish. But if you think that there's an expectation that you write in a different style, the best way to figure it out is to provide a few samples and have them kind of say, like, this is the one we want, versus having them try to describe it. Because if they try to describe a persona or a writing style or voice, like, it's nobody's going to know what anybody else is talking about. I don't think there's really much harm in most cases of using the same voice and the same style, provided that your personal writing isn't, like, you know, profanity laden. I don't know. In terms of how polished it is, how structured it is, that's up to you. Like, I don't, you know, if you're doing personal blogging, that is entirely your, yeah, some clients will let you curse. Not many. Not many. Yeah, I would say, like, if you're being paid to write something, obviously the expectations of, like, the level of structure and polish and everything are going to be higher than if it's something you're just doing
Right.
just for the heck of it.
Well, my wife is a voice actress, and what you said a minute ago about asking what they want, you should hear the things that they ask about. They want light and airy, but serious and deep-hearted. What does that mean? So yeah, if you get the chance, as you suggested, give a sample of different writing styles and let you provide the options that they can choose from. Otherwise, you're going to get
like
some
A, B, or
crazy
C
suggestions.
Not like, let's not try to qualitatively describe, because I can't even imagine doing it for voice acting. We want it to be gritty, but delicate.
That's what it's like.
Yeah. I mean, I've had clients come back and say, like, we want the names that you used in here to be more contemporary. Like, what's wrong with the name Sam? It's gender neutral. Okay, we'll make it Brittany. Yeah. Anyone else have thoughts? Questions? Oh.
Well, if nobody has any questions, you can continue presenting anything you'd like, or I could go ahead and wrap it up. Just let me know what you'd like to do.
Well, I just feel like I've been talking a lot. So I'll just give a really quick, just a really quick sort of hot take on hot takes. There's a lot of what people write about on their own personal blogs is very opinionated writing, which is not primarily what I do. But I have thoughts about it. And the main thing I would say about writing opinion-based technical content is that, so I don't know if anybody here remembers ever studying Aristotle's rhetoric But one of the categories of rhetorical appeals is ethos, which are appeals to credibility. So when you write your hot take, when you're writing an opinion-based piece, the most important thing you can do to get people to actually listen is to establish your credibility on the topic. The mistake that people make is thinking that that's an invitation to brag, to be arrogant. The way you establish credibility, and again, this is not me, this is Aristotle. The most effective way to establish credibility is not by saying, I am credible. It's by providing evidence of your credibility. So you want to indirectly supply evidence that you know what you're talking about, that you have experience, you have done specific concrete things that have given you the opinion that you have. Nobody really wants to listen to somebody be like, I'm the authority and you should listen to me. It's not persuasive. So a big thing for opinion-based writing is that you want it to actually be fairly focused on like one or two specific examples. So one of the samples that I'm going to provide when I share my the opinion writing guide is actually it's actually called Intro to GraphQL, but it's not really an intro. It's more like, we're going to explain GraphQL to you, and then we're going to tell you why we're using it and why we think it's better. But we're going to establish our credibility as authorities on GraphQL by explaining it really well to you and showing you that we understand and that we're invested in your understanding of it. And then once we've done that, we're going to kind of get into the persuasive part of it, where we say this is why we think it's a better solution in this case. I think that is a really compelling approach to technical opinion writing. Start by explaining it, establishing your credibility as a person who uses it and knows what the alternatives are, and then explain why you've done it or why you prefer that approach. Yeah. But I think that's really all. I'm really sorry I'm not better organized today. I had grand plans, but
no worries at all, Julia. Well, I'll go ahead and wrap it up. And of course, we really want to thank Julia for sharing her experience and her knowledge with us today. It looked like we're going to share that technical
I'll send those
template later.
I'll send those out later today, and then I think probably we'll put them up on the monthly challenge page, under resources, because they're definitely something that will be more useful to kind of refer back to as you write.
Okay, great. And of course, if anybody here online today is interested in doing their own Lunch and Learn, we are always welcome for new experiences and new topics. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our community maintainers. We're always here to support you and answer any questions. And we're looking forward to whatever events we have next here on Virtual Coffee. For descriptions of those, feel free to check out our events page or our latest newsletter, which can be found on our site. And we hope everyone has a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.